Alright, now we will finish the implementation of our crafting system by adding the functionality for our different widgets. So first off, let's open up all of our newly created widgets. Craftable item, the crafting menu, and our recipe entry. Let's start with going to the crafting menu, to the event graph, and let's add a variable that will be a reference to our inventory. For the type, select BP inventory reference. Then right click and add a custom event, which will be called on craftable clicked. So that will be called when any of our buttons for the craftable items will be clicked. Add an input. For the types, search for craftable item reference and just call it clicked or something. Then compile, save, and let's go to our craftable item. Here on the event graph, create two variables. First one will be the assigned item, and that will be a BP master item class. Make that editable and exposed on spawn. And the second variable will be a reference to the crafting menu. Call that crafting menu, and for the type, select crafting menu reference. Should also be editable and exposed on spawn. Compile and save. Now when we construct our craftable item, we will get the name text and set text. Connect that to the event construct. For the int text, we'll get our item, get class defaults, and break the item info, then connect the name. Then let's select our select button and add an onClicked event. So when we press a button, we get our crafting menu and call our custom event that we just created on craftable clicked, and the clicked craftable will be ourselves. Connect the execution here. Now we can close our craftable item, go to the recipe entry. Here on the event graph, we will also need variables. First one will be the assigned item class again, BP master item class, editable and exposed on spawn. Then we will need an required amount, and that will be an integer, editable and exposed on spawn as well. So that value will just tell us how many instances of this item we need. Crafter item. Add another one. That will be the crafting menu reference. So crafting menu reference, also editable and exposed on spawn. And the last variable will be current amount. That will be an integer and not editable nor exposed. In here we will also need a function to update our recipe entry. And what we'll do is get our icon, set brush from texture. For the int texture, get our item class, get class defaults, just as we did before, break the item info, expand it, get the icon, connect that. After that, we will get our crafting menu, get its inventory reference, and call the function created in the first video. That is called get total amount of item. The item will be our item class. Then we will set the current amount to the total amount of items that we found. After that, we will get our name amount text and set text. Then right click somewhere, search for format text. Now for the in format, type in curly brackets name, close the curly bracket, hit spacebar once, open a usual bracket, open a curly bracket, type in current amount, close the curly bracket, type in slash, open another curly bracket, and then type in required amount. Now close the curly bracket and close the normal bracket. The name will come from our sItem info. Current amount will be current amount. The required amount will be required amount. convert it to a text. Then plug in the result for the int text. And after that we also want to set color and opacity. Off of the in color and opacity, make slate color, and off of the specified color, search for select color. The pick A will be that our current amount is less than the required amount. If that is the case, our text will be red. If not, it will be white. After we set the color and opacity, we can return. Compile and save. Okay, that's it for the recipe entry. Close that. In our crafting menu, we'll also need new functions. First one will be called generate craftable list. And for that, we will get our craftable items scroll box, clear it, then get the inventory and search for unlocked craftable items. Off of that, go into a for each loop. Now for all of our unlocked craftable items, we will create a widget of the class craftable item. Item comes from our array element and crafting menu will be ourself. Connect that to the loop body. Then copy over the craftable item scroll box and search for add child. Then connect the return value to the content, and after our loop is completed, we return. Okay, before we can work on the other functions, we will need some variables in here. First one will be our current item class, and variable type will be bp master item class. Next one will be current item info, and its variable type will be s underscore item info. Then we also need another variable, and that will be our recipe entries. For the variable type, search for recipe entry reference and make it an array. And the last variable will be our current craftable that is selected. That should not be an array, and the variable type will be craftable item reference. Compile and save. Let's duplicate our generate craftable list and call that generate recipe entries. This time we will get our recipe entries list and clear that instead of our craftable item scroll box. And we will get our recipe entries array and clear that as well. Then we will get our current item info, break it, expand it here, and off of the recipe, go into a for each loop, connect that to the clear children, remove that part here. So now for every entry of our recipe, we will create a widget of the type recipe entry. Off of the array element, search for break as inventory slot. Item class goes into the item class of our widget. Amount into the required amount. Crafting menu again, cells. Connect it to the loop body. Then get our recipe entries array and add an element. That will be the return value. Finally, get our recipe entries list. Add child to vertical box, and the content will be the return value. When it's completed, we can return. Let's also create a function to check whether the current item can be crafted. So can be crafted question mark. We'll have an output which will be a boolean. Just call that out. Then we will create a local boolean. Set the default value to true. And now we'll take all of our recipe entries and launch them for each loop. Now for all of our recipe entries, we will get the current amount, get the required amount as well. Then off of our current amount, search for less than. If it's less than the required amount, we will set our local bool to false. And actually you don't want to use a for each loop, but rather a for each loop with break. So let's replace that. Because when we found an entry where the current amount is less than the required amount, we can break out of it, go to the completed and return our local bool. Compile and save. Now there's one more function we need to create, and that is the most complicated one of them. It will be called update detail window. We'll have an input which will be b underscore master item class called our new item class. Let's start with a check whether our new item class is valid. Search for a branch, connect that. If it's not valid, we can get our current item class and set that to null. Get our name text and the description. Then set text. Set the text to an empty text and connect the description to the target as well. After that, we will get our item icon, the division, our recipe text, and finally our craft button. Off of one of these, search for set visibility to hidden, and then connect all of the other ones to it. Finally, we want to get our recipe entries list and clear all children. After that, we can return. For the true path, we want to check whether our new item class is equal to our current item class. Hold B and left click to create a branch, connect that to the condition and connect it to the true path. Let's do the false path first this time as well. So if it's false, we will set the current item class to our incoming new item class. Then we'll get the class defaults of that and set the current item info to the item info. After that, get our item icon, set brush from texture. In texture, let's get our current item info, and up here we will break it, expand that, connect the icon. Then let's get the name text, set text to our name, get the description, set text to our description of the item. After that, we can generate our recipe entries. Then we can check whether the item that is selected now can be crafted. And we want to get our craft button. Set is enabled to the return value of our can be crafted request. Then we can copy over everything we did down here with the set visibility node. And this time we want to show them again. Then return. If the new item class is the current item class, we want to get all of our recipe entries, and for each of them we will call the update function, and when it's completed we will go to the can be crafted function call here. Alright, compile and save. Can close our functions now, go to the event graph and add an event which will be called init crafting menu. It will need an input, and that will be a BP inventory reference called inventory. So then we will set the inventory to the incoming inventory reference, generate our craftable list, and after that update our detail window with no new item class selected. So with that, all of our text here and the icon will be hidden then. Now let's select our close button in the variables list and add it on clicked. Same as we did with our other widgets. When our close button is clicked, we want to set visibility of our cells to hidden. Now let's do the onCraftable clicked. First off, we will check whether our current craftable is valid. Execute that. If it is valid, we will get the current craftable, get the button, the select button, and set is enabled to true again. After that, set the current craftable to the inClicked. Then get the current craftable's select button and set is enabled, this time to false. And finally we will update our detail window. The new item class will come from our current craftable, and there the get item. If our current craftable is not valid, we will simply skip the step of setting the old selected one to enable. Now we also have to do our craft button, so add an onClicked for that. First off, we will get our craft button and set is enabled to false, just so that our player can't press it multiple times while the computer is executing one of the functions that we will call now. Let's get our inventory and call our function called add item, not the internal one. Amount will be 1, and you can decide whether you want to show a notification when you craft something. I will leave it as false. Item class will be our current item class. And then off of the success, search for a branch. Now if we were not successful, we will call our canBeCrafted function and get the craft button. Set is enabled to the return value of our canBeCrafted call. However, if we manage to add the item, we will get the current item info, break that, expand it, and off of our recipe, call for each loop, connect the true to the execution, connect the completed to the canBeCrafted, and the loop body will be that we will get the inventory and call remove item, break the array element, connect the item class to the item and the amount to the amount, then connect the loop body to the remove item call. That's everything we had to do for our crafting menu. Let's also put that inside of our main widget. So open the main widget and under user created get our crafting menu. I will anchor it to the right upper corner, set the alignment in X to 1, and then you can set position in X and Y to 0, and we will be perfectly aligned to the right top corner. Give that a name, crafting widget. Maybe increase the Z order to 3. And the visibility should by default be hidden. Then let's go to the graph. On our event graph, when we construct everything here, before we set the slots per row, let's get our crafting widget and call initialize crafting menu, and the inventory reference will be our inventory reference. Compile and save. We also need a way of toggling our crafting menu's visibility, so let's go to the top down character and open the blueprint for that. Go to the event graph and I will use the key C. So when C is pressed, I will get the inventory reference, get the main widget, off of the main widget get the crafting widget, and I want to set its visibility. For the invisibility I will search for a select node, and the index will be whether our crafting widget is visible at the moment. So when it's not visible, we will set it to visible. If it is visible, set it to hidden. Compile and save. Now one last thing that we'll have to do before we can test is go back to our inventory. And in here we'll add another function called update crafting menu. What that will do is get our main widget, get the crafting menu, get its current item, check whether the current item class is valid. If it is, we will get the crafting widget and call our update detail window, and the new item class will be our current item class. If it's false, we'll return, and after we updated the detail window, we return as well. Now that function we will have to call when we remove an item or add an item, so that when our crafting menu is open, we pick up something, we can see it updating. So let's go to our add item function, and every time after we add weight for an item, we can call our update crafting menu. Same on the true path. After we added the weight, after we showed the obtained item, update crafting menu. Compile and save. And we also have to do that in our remove item at index function. So open that. And here, every time we update a slot at index, we can call our update crafting menu and do the same thing here. Compile, save. One thing I forgot is in our generate recipe entries function in the crafting menu, after we created the widget and maybe before we added it to the array, we want to call our update function. Connect that, and now we should be able to test. When I hit C, you can see our crafting menu without any item or description here. When I select the hero slot, you can see hero slot and the description. We will need 5 pieces of wood, but we have 0, so we cannot hit the craft button. Can select the health potion as well. See that we need 5 stones to craft that. Now with our crafting menu open, you can see when I pick up the wood, see it updating here, and it turns white, so we can see that we have enough wood. Get the stone, that turns white as well, and our craft button is enabled. Now I can hit the craft button, and we have 25 pieces of wood left, 10 pieces of stone, and 1 new hero sword. If we have our crafting menu open and maybe throw away 1 stone, see it updating here, and our crafting button will be disabled.